today I'm here to show you the books that I read in April. I'm also here to do my wrap up for the O.W.L.S, which took place in the month of April, and I am happy to say I read all 6 of the books that I set out to read in my TBR for the O.W.L.S, and I'm so glad. And actually at the end I was a bit concerned that it wasn't going to end up happening, but I got there in the end. And I also listened to an audiobook during the month too, so I actually did end up reading 7 books in the month. If you saw my TBR video, you know what all these books are going to be, but at least I can tell you my thoughts upon reading them, and I'm just glad that I'm on my way to becoming a trader of magical tomes for the O.W.L.S, and I am just pretty happy with how the month went, except for one book that kind of shitted me. But I'm excited to show you all the books that I read in the month. So the first book I read was A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kemmerer. I never know. It's not even that hard. It's Kemmerer. But that's besides the point. This book is the second book in the Curse So Dark and Lonely trilogy. I don't actually know if it's got a name, so I'm just gonna call it that. So this second book focuses on Gray and Liamara, who are the 2 main characters for this book, and we also don't have a heavy focus on Harper and Wren, which is sad, not gonna lie, because I did really enjoy Curse So Dark and Lonely for the Beauty and the Beast aspect, so I thought the story was going to continue on. And then I found out it was going to be about other characters, which was a bit hard, but I did really end up enjoying this book. I did give it 4 stars though because of that aspect, but Liamara and Gray's story was quite fun, and this book is a lot slower, and I'm not really focusing on the plot here too much because stuff that happens to these characters is important in the first book and you don't want to spoil it. And I am very keen for the third book, and she has said that the third book's going to have all 4 perspectives, which is pretty cool, so I'm excited for that. But it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, which is always a bit sad and hard to like take into terms when you expect something to be a certain way and then it's not, and you're like, okay, now I have this. But I do highly recommend giving these books a go. They are quite fun and just really enjoyable read. Then I finally read Hardsub Volume 3 by Alice Oseman, and oh my god, I just love this so much. Every single volume of this that I've read, I have enjoyed profusely. Charlie and Nick are just adorable. They are adorable, and I honestly want to buy Solitaire just so I can read them as background characters in Tori's story, because damn. And I'm so sad that I have to wait until next year for the 4th volume, but this year we're getting a story that takes place when Nick has to go to college and Charlie still is at school, and I'm like, yes, give me all the stories about them because they are adorable. But this one was really fun because their school did a trip to Paris and we got to see all the sights and see them just being cute in Paris. This one did end up delving into some more serious topics than the previous 2 novellas, but it was done really well. And again, I highly recommend picking up these graphic novels if you haven't already. Next I read Night of Cake and Puppets by Lanley Taylor, and this was just so much fun. But what made it really great is all these illustrations throughout the book that really add to the story so that you like really understand what's going on. And like, it was quite easy to read because with the pictures and how small the book is, and it's only like 200 pages, I read it in like one go. But I liked seeing where Susanna and Mick started because their relationship has been a background story in the main series that I've always really enjoyed. So to have this knowledge of how they first started dating, which was really adorable, because in the main story Susanna is too scared to talk to him even though she is like the bravest person ever, and then we find out that Mick has always liked her too, and it was like, oh, this is so adorable. And I really enjoyed them in the second book, and I still haven't read the third book in this trilogy, but I'm going to at some point when I feel like it. But I definitely think we'll see more of them in that story as well. This was definitely worth reading and something you should read between the second and the third book. So like now I actually am able to go to the third book, but if you haven't read this novella, it's another one you should pick up, and it really enhances your reading experience of this series. Next I read The Gentleman's Guide to Getting Lucky by Mackenzie Lee. So this is a very tiny novella about Monty and Percy's first time, which was so much fun to read. Like generally you don't get a whole book about people trying to have sex, but it was done so well in this. It's so cute, and just to have a little bit more knowledge about like where they're going to end up in life and seeing what Felicity's doing and having them all with all the pirates and everything. But it was really good, and I definitely wanted to read this before The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy, but there's another book coming about the third sibling, so that's going to be really interesting, but it takes place like ages later when these guys are going to be like 40 or something. Another one I highly recommend. I feel like novellas were just my thing this month, but really enjoyed. Again, really quick and easy read. You can read it in one sitting, easy peasy. Then I read House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J Maas, and honestly my favorite thing I've read this month. And I can't believe I read this in a week. Like, this is an 800-page book and I read it in a week. It was honestly so exciting when she announced a new book that was going to be an adult book. As time went on, I started to not get as excited when this book wasn't out, but when it came out, I was like, I had to buy a copy straight away, and then I read it and just, yes, my love is like being rekindled and I need the next book like right now. And I feel feel like I don't really want to go like too far into details because I did film a whole 20-minute book review for this book. So if you do want to know like my full in-depth feelings, I will link that down below. And I will also link my review to A Heart So Fierce Broken because I filmed a review for that book as well because I needed to talk about it. Basically, I loved Bryce. She was a great main character. I loved Hunt, and the story just kept building and building on itself. And it's like what Sarah J Maas does is like where it starts to where it ends is completely different, and the growth is just done so well. And there's so much stuff going on this book, and it definitely needed the 800 pages to tell this story. But I definitely think people need to know going into this book that the world building is quite confusing. Like, you do understand it by the halfway point, I would say, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's so and so and that's so and so and that's why this happens and that's why that happens. It really chucks you into the story straight up, and you're just like, whoa, where am I? And just like having to learn about this whole new world is just so draining at the first part, but then this book sits so good and everything is just so good. Definitely check out that review if you want to know more though. Then the audiobook I listened to was Warrior of the Wild by Trisha Levenseller. So now I have read all the books that she's published, and I really did end up enjoying this one. It was really fun, and it had like a real Viking feel to it. So Rasmira is our main character, and she's been training to be a warrior in her village like her whole life, and there's this trial they have to complete to become a full warrior. So when her trial gets sabotaged, she gets banished to the wild, and she has this massacre that she has to complete, and she is tasked with killing the god that terrorizes the villagers each year. And this god takes a payment each year from the villagers, and all their resources are slowly dwindling because they have to pay this payment but then also live for the full year with what they have. She basically, yeah, has to go out there and kill him, and she's stuck in the wild with all these beasts and stuff. But really she learns a lot about herself, and she meets these two boys out there too, Eirik and Soren, who also have massacres to complete. And it was just really fun because like at first it was just kind of like this like, oh, what's happening with this warrior story, and then it just kept building and it got really interesting, and like the dynamic between the three main characters was really good. And again, they all learned a lot about each other. They all had a really good journey of growth, and I highly recommend this. But I definitely think reading Daughter of the Pirate King if you haven't read any of her works first, because that book is just beautiful. Then pick up this book, and then pick up The Shadows Between Us. She is a great author, and I will highly recommend her for a very long time probably because she's so good. The last book I read, and the one that really stuffed up my reading for me, is Uprooted by Naomi Novak. So I had finished Crescent City by the 16th of April, so it took me 2 weeks to finish this book. I was doing so well, and I thought I'd be able to fit in Replica as well, which was my April TBR pick that I chose. So I didn't get to my book a month that I needed to because this book took me so long to read. It was so boring. I heard so many good things about it from so many YouTubers because they're like, amazing, it's great, it's a wonderful story, and the Beauty and the Beast aspects really talked to me. So I knew I wanted to read this, but I felt like there was no point to it, honestly. The magic was confusing, and the story didn't really make a point, and everything kept changing all over the place, and I just was not a big fan. And again, just boring. Like, I gave it 3 stars because I did like the main character, who I'm not even going to attempt to say her name because it's some weird shit, and I like the dragon. But then again, I really didn't like the romance between them because it was a bit weird. But I just am sad because I wanted to love this book, and I sadly did not, and it's just sad. So basically I have my TBR for the O.W.L.S to show you because that's kind of like all I've got to show you, but I did end up reading 7 books, and I really did have a good reading month, like being Crescent City the highlight because I read so much with that book. Just saying, all this was really good reading to get done, like 16 days, and I read all this. I'm very proud of myself, but this bitch ruined everything. And coming into May, I haven't even read much of anything. I think I've read 50 pages in the last 4 days, and I am not doing well. I'm not doing well at all. And to talk about my rebuy tally, and I also changed it to an RB because every time I would write it, I just was not keen with the big words. So now we have RB. So I read 7 and I only bought 3, so I'm going a lot better because I am really focusing on trying to get my TBR down like a little bit. It's at 389 at the moment, and it was getting close to 400, but I stopped buying and I've been reading. So like, I'm not gonna make a big dent in it at all unless I get rid of like half of them. But at the moment, because I have not reached 400, I'm very happy with myself. So I just got to try and not buy things and keep reading. And generally at the moment, all the books I want to buy are like 40 bucks on Book Depository to buy the books. So I'm like, no thank you. So I really don't have a choice anyway because I don't want to spend that money on the books that I want to buy. But anyway guys, that was my wrap up for the month of April and also my O.W.L.S, and I really am excited that I managed to finish them. But I do know that to complete my newts, I'm gonna have to read 11 books. I like don't know how I'm gonna cope with that. if I want to become a trader of magical tomes and an animagus. So I may have to not become an animagus to get all the books I need read, or I might be able to do it, who knows, but I at least have 3 months to wait before that becomes a thing again. But anyway guys, thanks so much for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!